The episode begins with Shadow receiving assistance from Beta, who tells him that there hasn't been any clear activity from the Diablos factions in the Kingdom of Medkar since the incident at the previous Boshin festival. The smaller factions had been in a state of stagnation before, but now the Venerier faction, which was undergoing restructuring, has resumed its movements after the recent disturbance. They claim that everything is going according to plan, and they can now focus their main efforts on the situation in the Kingdom of Oriana. Shadow expresses his surprise and asks about the exciting news, to which Beta responds that there has been a recent acceleration in the flow of money to the lawless city that doesn't belong to any country. She explains that it's a large, impoverished area where the world's evils, wealth, and power converge, and any disturbances there could have far-reaching consequences for the rest of society. Despite their desire to concentrate all their efforts on their plan, Beta reluctantly admits that they may need to deploy additional forces to this area immediately. Shadow senses the scent of blood coming from the lawless city and predicts a storm of blood is approaching. The organization members are perplexed when they notice that the moon's color has become redder than usual, resembling the legendary red moon. They explain that a similar catastrophe occurred 1,000 years ago, and if the lawless city remains in its current state, all the surrounding nations will suffer the consequences. Alpha speaks up, saying that facing this challenge may even strip the legendary red moon of its significance. Shadow insists on going alone, and the members express their concerns for his safety. He reassures them, saying that the red moon is the only concern. Alpha tells him that even in facing the legendary red moon, he will still find beauty in it. They wish him luck in the upcoming battle, acknowledging that the red moon was once just an ordinary moon, but now it serves as a warning for the living queen of blood. Only Shadow and the organization know this information, and they praise his improvisational skills with. Afterward, the two individuals say, "So, this is the Crimson Tower ruled by the Blood Queen. She is one of the 3 rulers of the lawless city." Then they explain that it's the castle of the Bloodsuckers and no one dares to approach it because getting too close will lead to instant death. Not even the strongest creatures can challenge it. The guard they encounter is surprised by their words, laughing at them and saying, "You two don't deserve to pass through this gate. The only ones allowed in here are servants, guests of the Blood Queen, or powerful warriors." The two strangers surprise the guard by responding that they are not servants or guests, but powerful warriors who have come here to hunt the Blood Queen. The guard laughs at them again, saying that he enjoys it when he finds someone even more foolish than himself. He begins to take off his cloak and explains that this is what happens to fools who dare challenge the Blood Queen. He lost his right arm, and now they are crying for help like a guard dog tied to a post. The two warriors assure the guard that they are not weak like him. The guard then tells them to consider something for the afterlife, revealing that his power level is 4 million. He mentions that he used to be known as the White Devil and was a wanted criminal with a huge bounty on his head, but now he's just a guard dog for the Blood Queen. He taunts them and begins to attack. In the morning, we find Shadow in the city, remarking that the lawless city resembles a garbage dump as he imagined. Claire tells him to stop investigating because drawing the attention of peculiar characters will be bothersome. She suggests going to the Crimson Tower, but Shadow decides to go to the Union of Dark Knights first for a planning meeting. Claire asks what it is, as she hasn't seen this union in the area before. Shadow explains that they have their own special group of Dark Knights, and the Union of Dark Knights is an unofficial organization. The Union of Dark Knights is an unofficial organization that was formed by the Dark Knights themselves, and it does not belong to any public institution. Shadow, who goes by the name Minoru Kagino, tells his story of how he was once on a path to become significant in the shadows, but his journey came to an abrupt end. His sister Claire won the Boshin Festival Championship and used her connection to Gamma to book a free dinner to inform him that she was going to the lawless city to hunt vampires. After the tournament, she headed straight for the battle. Later, we see Shadow with his sister Claire, who is pulling him along. She brought him here with her for his future, as he will inherit the property in the remote area. Shadow never really thought about what he would do after graduation, as Claire will inherit the property there. He believes that they will force him into some job somewhere. Since he's capable of doing anything he wants, he doesn't really care about the nature of the job he'll have. Claire asks him what he wants to do, and he tells her it's a secret since he's keen on not revealing his true intentions to anyone. She asks him to stop trying to hide the fact that he never really thought about it. At this moment, a man approaches them and speaks to Claire, inviting her into his store. He has obtained new and high-quality pets, which arrived just this morning. He is selling these valuable goods at a discount. The man, who is referred to as the pet master, has multiple injuries on his body. Claire advises him to handle his merchandise with more care. He explains that he received a few blows during transportation, and the price for the pets is 30 million zeni. However, he offers to give them a special deal for 27 million. Claire agrees to the offer, and the merchant adds that this person with her will make it 40 million just for her. She agrees to this as well. Shadow watches them closely, as he has seen them somewhere before. Claire finishes the deal with the merchant and leaves on her way. After being saved by Mary, Shadow realizes that he can't move in his current state. But Mary doesn't want to leave him behind because she knows he would be lost without her. The next day, as Shadow is strolling down the street, he encounters a man who steals his wallet containing his money. Then another man gives him multiple wallets filled with money. He can't believe how easily he has become rich just by walking in this city, which he considers a paradise. As he heads home, he hears a man screaming as he beats up a young boy. The boy had made the man lose a bet, and the man's girlfriend, Mary, rejected him. Shadow realizes that the man being beaten is a vampire follower. In this world, survival goes to the strongest, exactly as Shadow had expected from the lawless city, a place drenched in bloodshed. Shadow senses that something is about to happen, and indeed he sees that the moon has turned red. He thinks it's a surge of magical energy. The vampire who had been beaten up earlier suddenly transforms into a beast and begins to kill the men who had attacked him. Anyone bitten by him will become a vampire like him. Shadow understands that the change in the moon's color is responsible for this transformation. The red moon activates all the magical energy in the city, and if left unchecked, the situation will worsen, with everyone turning into monsters. Shadow contemplates whether to run away like an inconspicuous person as usual or fight them. At that moment, Mary arrives and saves him, killing the two monsters. Shadow asks her about herself, and she introduces herself as Mary, an ancient vampire hunter. Shadow asks her why she came to save him, and Mary explains that if she didn't, he would have died. She warns him that the frenzy has begun because of the red moon, and there's no time to waste. She advises him to escape if he doesn't want to die. Then she leaves him behind. We then switch to Shadow's sister, who enters his room but doesn't find him. Instead, a man exits the adjacent room, screaming because there are vampire followers inside. Shadow's sister attacks and kills him, then asks about Shadow's whereabouts, but he doesn't know where he is. After that, Shadow's friends appear on the street, admiring this girl. Then someone approaches and startles them. They look and see many vampires, and everyone is terrified and runs away. However, the vampires kill them. We see the girl looking out the window, very scared. Then one of the vampire men enters, and she panics and screams. But Shadow arrives just in time and kills him with a powerful blow. He tells her to escape if she doesn't want to die as the frenzy has begun. He leaves, but she talks to him asking for his name. He answers that he is Shadow and leaves. Then another girl approaches her, asking if she's okay because a man named Shadow came and saved her. The girl tells her that she knows him, and he is the evil mastermind who used to enjoy beating corrupt religious men, and he's a danger to any of this city's rulers. However, Mary reassures her that he is not evil. She gathers her things and plans to escape the city. Her friend advises against it, fearing the consequences if they are discovered. During their conversation, Yuki comes and advises her to try escaping if she's lucky. She might succeed. Mary then informs her that the vampires are roaming the city. Later, we see Shadow's sister crying because she found a dead person who looks just like him on the ground. She apologizes to him for being in that place. Mary comes to Shadow's sister and tells her that she is the woman who has been wandering and asking about a boy with black hair and black eyes. She had met him recently and found him dead here. Claire, Shadow's sister, responds that the dead person doesn't have black hair or black eyes. She saw his green eyes lying on the ground. She also mentions encountering two men who match the description she provided to her brother. Claire then gives Mary the head she was holding and asks her to tell her more about the place where she saw her brother. Mary describes seeing the first man when the moon turned red, and he was standing in front of a raging ghoul, smiling. Claire explains that this can't be her brother because he would scream but never smile. Mary then describes the second man she saw recently, a young dark knight with no distinct features. Claire concludes that this must be her brother. Mary reveals that the followers of the Vampire Queen are taking him to the Crimson Tower, where the Blood King resides. The vampires intend to offer him as a sacrifice to awaken Queen Elizabeth from her 1,000-year slumber, and they need the blood of a young, living person for that purpose. Claire tells Mary that this is the first time she's heard that the Blood Queen was in such a state. Mary responds that they've kept this fact hidden, waiting for the fateful night, which has been 1,000 years in the making. On this night, the vampires will gain tremendous power when the Red Moon appears again. The Red Moon also affects the Sleeping Queen, using the blood sacrifice as a catalyst. There's no doubt she will return to life. In any case, Mary assures Claire that her brother is undoubtedly in that tower. If they need the blood of a living person, it means he's still alive. Suddenly, a group of vampires emerges, drawing their swords and swiftly eliminating them. Mary tells Claire that her goal is Queen Elizabeth, the Blood Queen. So, they must go to the Crimson Tower, and their destination is the same. They decide to cooperate and quickly make their way to the tower. Mary explains that entering from the ground floor will be challenging, but there's another way. We then see young people running in fear from the vampires. The scene shifts to a bald man named Juggernaut, the Tyrant, who is ecstatic about the impending battle and the smell of a great fight. He tells another man about the battle, saying it's the biggest they've seen since the invasion of the half-monsters in the past. In another scene, a group of knights is told to run across the rooftops to reach the station and escape. One of the female knights questions their unity and purpose as Dark Knights. However, nobody pays much attention to her words. They leave, and only one female knight remains with her. The remaining knight tells her that they can't stand their ground on the main street. Suddenly, the place is overrun by vampires in great numbers, and they are all terrified. They realize they won't be able to take down such a large group. The other knight leaves in a hurry, leaving the girl alone. However, a person suddenly annihilates all the vampires in an instant, and we find that the person who has eliminated the vampires is indeed Shadow. He tells them to flee if they don't want to die because the frenzy has begun and they have little time left. The scene then shifts to the evil Crimson Sama, who informs his underlings that the preparations for the sacrifice are complete and their plan to seize the city is going as planned. However, they are facing unexpected resistance in certain areas. Crimson Sama mentions the two fools who are talking nonsense about being equals with him. They are Yukimi, the spiritual fox ruler of the White Tower, and Juggernaut, the tyrant, the ruler of the Black Tower. Crimson Sama instructs his assistant to let them do as they please and dispose of them as soon as Queen Elizabeth is revived. The assistant then informs him that there is another person who wanders the city and kills ghouls. On the other side, we see Juggernaut, the tyrant, fighting zombies, killing them one by one. He then attempts to kill Yukimi, the spiritual fox ruler of the White Tower. She tells him that he is indeed a hindrance on her path, and to stop emitting his foul scent in the city, calling her an animal. They begin to engage in combat. Afterward, Shadow appears in the sky and tells them that nothing changes even if someone tries to weave a new story somewhere. He doesn't change, and suddenly he swoops down towards the two who are fighting, surprising them with his strength. And that concludes the first episode of the second season. Stay tuned for more episodes, and please subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to receive updates. The story continues as the White Devil believes that killing others is what gives his life meaning and makes him feel truly alive. He notices Juggernaut and Yukime slaying some vampires, thinking they are exceptionally powerful. He questions why they are in his territory and attempts to attack Shadow. However, Shadow effortlessly defeats him. Meanwhile, Beta explores the Crimson Tower's library, where she encounters Cly and Marie. Beta reveals that she is a member of Shadow Garden conducting research on the possessed and vampires. She aims to obtain a blood sample from a progenitor vampire. They learn about Beta's mission and her desire to avoid unnecessary conflict. The scene shifts to Marie and Clael encountering Juggernaut, who is attacking powerful vampires in the tower. They notice Shadow intervening, saving them from Juggernaut's assault. Marie explains her history as a vampire and the failed attempt to coexist with humans. She shares her intention to stop Crimson and save Queen Elizabeth. Claire decides to help her. Story continues, and the White Devil thinks that killing is what gave his life meaning and it made him feel truly alive. He mentions that he was standing at the top of the fight for survival, but he was wrong, and because of that mistake, this is what became of him. He thinks that he just wants to kill someone, and he then notices Juggernaut and Yukim slaying some ghouls, and he thinks that they are major big shots, and he wonders what they are doing here. He wonders why they had to come to his turf, and he then notices Shadow interfering in their fight. Both Juggernaut and Yuki may recognize Shadow as the man who wreaked havoc in the Midgar royal capital, and the person who wiped the floor with those priests. Juggernaut states that he doesn't care for this, and he breaks the door of the Crimson Tower. Shadow then mentions that the moon is red and the frenzy has begun. Yuki May wonders if Shadow is referring to the current trouble with the ghouls, and Juggernaut thinks that he must be talking about the Red Moon legend, where they say that 3 kingdoms fell when the moon was red. The last time Juggernaut thinks that this might get the vampires to give him a decent workout, and he leaves. Yuki mentions that she heard that Shadow helped out some of her girls in the pleasure quarters, and she hopes that they can stay on friendly terms. The White Devil then wonders how Juggernaut managed to break that gate so easily, as it's an artifact, and he thinks that both Juggernaut and Yuki are monsters. He thinks that he wanted to slice up some humans, and he then shifts his focus onto Shadow. He thinks that he can't sense any power from Shadow, and he thinks that Shadow must be weaker than him. He then tries to attack Shadow, but Shadow slices him into pieces without any effort. The White Devil then wonders who this guy is, and Shadow states that the moon is red and the frenzy has begun. The scene then cuts to Beta in the library at the Crimson Tower, and after reading some books, she thinks that if this was the general technology of the time, then they can conclude that the church's level of technology was extraordinary. She thinks that the source of their power was found in the D-Demon, and she wonders how they found the knowledge necessary to harness that power. Beta then hears a racket, and Kale and Marie come into the library. We find out from their conversation that they fell into a trap which led them here, and Beta wonders what she should do. She states that she was supposed to eliminate all witnesses, but she doesn't think that she can do that. In this case, she mentions that she has no desire to fight Clay, and Claire can't believe that Beta knows her. Beta mentions that she is the one who won the festival, and Marie mentions that they shouldn't fight Beta as she isn't a vampire, and they don't have any time to waste. She states that Beta is also not alone, and we see that there are 3 more Shadow Garden members with her, and one of them is Rose. Claire then asks Beta who she is, and Beta introduces herself, and she mentions that she is a member of Shadow Garden. She states that she is doing research on the possessed for reasons she can't go into, and she states that she is hoping for a blood sample from a progenitor vampire. Marie wonders how progenitor vampires are connected to the possessed, and Beat explains that, when traced back to the origin, the possessed and vampires are the same. She mentions that, according to their theory, the bloodlines split from one another in the process of descendancy, and to test this hypothesis, they need to study the blood. Queen Marie mentions that this would be blasphemy against the progenitors, and Beta wonders why this would make Marie angry. And we see that she knows that Marie is an ancient vampire hunter who is rumored to have existed for more than 1,000 years. Beta states that they are going to be out of their way, and she wants them to be out of their way as well. Claire then asks Beta if there is a way to cure the possessed, and Beta states that Claire has nothing to worry about. Claire doesn't understand this, and she mentions that they should leave now, as they won't be able to save her brother if they waste any more time here. Hearing this makes Rose worried, and she tries to ask if Sid is all right, but Beta stops her, and she reminds her to not get out of line. Beta then asks Marie if she has no desire to strive for Haven again, and Claire and Marie then leave. Beta then states that she is disappointed by Rose, and Rose apologizes to her. Beta mentions that their mission is just to retrieve a sample, and she states that Lord Shadow will deal with the Blood Queen. The scene then cuts to Marie and Claire defeating a vampire by piercing its heart, and Claire is surprised that even an immortal vampire can be killed by destroying the heart. Marie states that they also don't do well in the sun, and she states that they should hurry on. While moving on, Clay wonders if Marie is hiding something from her, and she wonders what is the haven that Beta talked about in the library. Marie mentions that Claire also seems to be hiding something, and she states that it's common knowledge that the possessed can never be human, and she wonders why Claire would even ask a question like that. She states that everyone has their secrets, and she mentions that she won't pry into hers. If Claire does the same, they then feel some tremors, and they notice Juggernaut slaying some vampires. He thinks that they are also weak, and he then asks the other vampires where he can find the Blood Queen soon after he kills them as well, and Marie and Claire notice this. They both recognize Juggernaut, and Marie states that the vampire Juggernaut is beating on are some of the most powerful vampires. In this tower, she states that their power ranks in the top 5 among those in the tower, and she thinks that they should avoid a fight with Juggernaut. But Juggernaut notices them and he hits Claw on the face. He also punches Marie, and he thinks that he thought that they would be tougher than the other guys. Claire then stabs Juggernaut in the leg, and Juggernaut thinks that she is really tough. Claire mentions that he is the second person to hit her in the face, and she then notices that Marie is severely wounded. Marie thinks that it's been too long for her, and she then asks Saleh to let her drink her blood, and she kisses Clow, and she drinks her blood. This heals Marie's wounds, and she attacks Juggernaut. Juggernaut manages to dodge her attacks, and she attacks Marie, and with a powerful attack, Marie thinks that it's been so long that the blood is not assimilating, and Juggernaut tries to land a decisive blow. But Shadow then comes there, and he kicks Juggernaut out of the tower. Shadow then mentions that the frenzy has begun, and they have little time remaining. And he leaves. Claire wonders if Shadow came here to help them, and Marie thinks that this is the criminal that the church has marked as an enemy. Marie then apologizes to Claire for taking her blood, and Claire gets embarrassed, but she states that it was fine. Claire then wonders if Marie is a vampire, and Marie states that she is, and she mentions that she will tell Claire everything. She explains that more than 1,000 years ago, it was the golden age of the vampires, and they would hunt humans and devour them like animals. But the times changed, and the humans learned the vampires' weakness, and the hunters became the hunted during that time. The Blood Queen Lady Elizabeth was living among the humans as the ruler of a small town. She wanted to live in harmony with the humans, so she gave up on blood and following the Queen's example. Her subjects did the same as a result. They gradually lost their powers, and they gained the ability to walk in the sunlight. Their thirst for blood waned over time, and they were able to live in a beautiful world filled with life. But it was not the same for the Blood Queen, no matter how far she distanced herself from blood, the thirst, for it never left her, and the sunlight would burn her skin hideously. Nevertheless, she still wanted to build a haven where humans and vampires could live together in happiness. But then came the night of the Red Moon, which comes once every 1,000 years. The night gives vampires tremendous powers, and this made Queen Elizabeth starve for blood, and Crimson gave her a drop of it. This made the Queen go into a frenzy, and the frenzy lasted for 3 days and nights. The haven disappeared into a pile of rubble, and the 3 kingdoms suffered catastrophic damage. Marie states that she survived by lapping up the blood of the dead, and she went after the Queen. But when they were reunited, it was already over. The Queen told Marie that this mistake can never be repeated, and she asked her to scatter her ashes into the ocean so that her flesh can never revive, and she killed herself by piercing her heart. Marie mentions that she would have disintegrated at once if she were an ordinary vampire, but the Queen never turned to ash, and she was neither able to fulfill her wish or defy it. Immediately after that, Crimson and his followers took the Queen from her, and they spared her life out of respect for her service to the Queen. Crimson hoped that she would join him by the night of the next Red Moon, and she mentions that he is attempting to use the Queen for his own ambitions. Marie states that she cannot even hope for the Queen's forgiveness, and Claire states that she is also no different from Marie. She mentions that she might be possessed, and she states that she came here hoping to help her brother achieve something before she turned into a monster. But because of her, he is in danger right now. Claire then wonders if Mariah is sure that she can't build her haven again, and Marie states that she doesn't want to repeat the same mistake again. And she also thinks that Queen Elizabeth wants to die. Claire states that Marie won't know this unless she talks to the Queen, and she mentions that what they tried to build was not a mistake. She states that first they should kick Crimson's ass and get her queen back, and Marie thanks Claire for this, and she promises to save Sid as well. Claire states that she will take care of that herself, and the scene cuts to Shadow in the tower's treasury. He notices that the vampires have gathered a lot of good stuff here, and after looking around, he decides to take 1,000 coins. He thinks that they are the most portable out of everything here, and he then thinks that he has been showing up late a lot recently, and he thinks that he has to change things up. Sometimes he states that this time he is going to show up first and let the named characters watch an amazing battle, which makes them think that this fight is way out of their league. The scene then cuts to Crimson trying to revive Queen Elizabeth, and he plants her heart into the body of the sacrifice. But Shadow intervenes and he attacks Crimson, and we see that the heart has fallen out of the sacrifice. Thanks for watching part 2. The rest of the parts will be on my channel. Please like and share the video if you enjoyed it, and make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to keep getting new anime recap updates. This episode of the anime begins with intensity as the main character searches for the last leader amidst a field of corpses. He wonders if this is one of those events centered around large-scale battles, but there is no real leader in sight. He decides to go check the underground level, and if he finds nothing there, he'll take the remaining gold coins and return home. The scene then shifts to Mary and Claire, who are searching for their leader but can't find him. This implies that their leader might have been a sacrifice. Additionally, the coffin has disappeared. Suddenly, Elizabeth Sama appears and kills Claire, leaving Mary devastated for not being able to save her. Elizabeth Sama takes Claire with her and devours her, causing Mary to collapse on the ground. Then the scene transitions to the Shadow Garden, a group of shadow girls. One of them decapitates Elizabeth Sama, freeing Claire. Another girl saves her, and the girls try to provide first aid, but they realize that Claire might not survive with just basic medical care. One of the girls explains that if their leader hasn't shown up, it means they have more important priorities and bigger goals to achieve first. They cannot let Claire die, as she is their older sister. We see Elizabeth Sama miraculously resurrected, and 3 of the shadow girls attack her again. Elizabeth Sama displays incredible strength, using her flesh to immobilize them. When one of the girls strikes her with a powerful blow, Elizabeth Sama remains unfazed. Mary informs them that the girls of the Shadow Garden are incredibly strong, but Elizabeth Sama is slow to react due to low blood pressure, making her the strongest of them all. Surprisingly, Elizabeth Sama unleashes a magical strike stronger than Eva Sama. Then, the Black Tower's Juggernaut appears and delivers a powerful blow to Elizabeth Sama's face. She retaliates, knocking him to the ground. She directs her magic towards the girls of the Shadow Garden, leaving Juggernaut injured with a broken leg. Then we see all the girls in a miserable state. One of the girls informs Mary that Elizabeth has depleted all that magical energy, and there are no signs of fatigue in her. She's been siphoning their blood to heal herself, making her stronger. The girl then asks number 666 to take Claire and leave, so both of them can survive. Suddenly, something strange happens to all the girls as a red light appears on their bodies. One of the girls realizes that Elizabeth is manipulating the demon's blood, questioning how Elizabeth dared to defile Shadow Sama's blessing. The scene shifts to Claire waking up in an unfamiliar place on a bed next to a girl she doesn't know. The girl tells Claire that the symptoms she was experiencing were due to possession, but she's now healed because he knows everything. Claire asks the girl who she means by he, and the girl explains that it's someone she knows through direct experience. The girl warns Claire that her body will soon be reduced to pieces, which alarms Claire. The girl assures Claire that she will provide some help, but Claire becomes angry and tells her to be quiet, as she has no idea what's happening, who the girl is, and who this he is exactly. The girl then places one leg over the other and asks Claire if she's heard about evolution. She explains it as a theory proposed by a scientist that suggests that people were once apes, and over time, they adapted to their environment and became human. Another scientist later claimed that living beings do not adapt to their environment. Only the smartest apes survived in their harsh natural habitat and eventually evolved into humans. In other words, the division of blood into different types is another result of adaptation. This is what happened to Claire. She possesses the correct physical structure, but doesn't know how to control it, causing her blood to rage and her body to react. The girl doesn't get to finish her sentence as an alarm sounds, and she is forced to shut off the laptop. Claire agrees to wait when Aurora asks her to, as Aurora was about to impart an important piece of information. Suddenly, strange markings appear on Claire's hand. Aurora tells Claire that this will teach her how to control her power. Claire questions Aurora about her name and why she is helping her. Aurora reveals her name and explains that she's helping Claire because she's an important figure to Shadow Sama. Claire is surprised by this revelation. The scene shifts back to the battlefield, where a girl with Claire's appearance appears, leaving Mary puzzled. One of the girls addresses her as the disaster witch and asks her what happened to Claire. The girl explains that she used Claire's appearance to move easily, and the color change is not magic, but a reflection of light. She begins attacking Elizabeth, claiming that she is the original and that taking control of the blood she left behind isn't difficult. She uses her magic to cut Elizabeth into pieces, asserting that she is the most potent and significant power in the world. However, a sudden break occurs in the disaster witch's arm, and she realizes that her body cannot withstand it. Elizabeth's neck begins to heal, and she resurrects once again. She tells the girls that her time has come, and she was just buying time until Shadow arrives. Shadow suddenly appears and declares that it's time to wake up. He attacks Elizabeth, and one of the Shadow Garden girls informs them that Shadow is more potent than the disaster witch, with power equal to Elizabeth. The girl asks why Shadow is wasting time engaging in combat, suggesting he could defeat Elizabeth with one blow. Shadow explains that no matter how heavy the burden, he doesn't prepare for a single loss. This lifts the girls' spirits, and they request him to do his utmost to defeat Elizabeth. As they battle in the sky, Shadow tells Elizabeth his name is Atomic Recovery. Suddenly, something strange happens throughout the entire city, and all the people return to their normal state. The girls leave the scene, and we see Juggernaut, who talks about the Shadow Garden girls, explaining that the terminology used to name ghouls, vampires, and possessors differs. The scene shifts once more to a group of boys who realize they are fortunate to be alive, but have lost everything, including their swords and armor. Shadow, standing alongside Mary and Claire, tells them that ghouls, vampires, and possessors have different names, but they're all on the same side. At the end, they only suffer from magic overuse, which is easy to treat. However, there are some diseases that cannot be cured. Claire remembers a strange occurrence in her left hand when she was in her room, wondering if her blood is trying to lead her somewhere. Returning to the present, Shadow tells them that sigils, magical circles, and special powers were beyond his older sister's grasp. However, he can't ignore Maha because, in the past, all the children followed this path to overcome their childhood fears and challenges. Claire tells her brother, Sid, about the unique power in her left hand, and he assures her that she'll be fine, regardless of the path she chooses. He'll always support her. Claire is delighted and holds her brother's hand, thanking him. The train continues, and Claire asks Sid if he knows someone named Shadow. Sid asks her what she wants from him, and if he's the one who burned down their school. Claire says she doesn't want anything from him. Sid then speaks to himself, expressing his confidence that his sister will face different types of trials and experiences, and she will have to confront her anxieties, Maha, and her reality. Her left hand begins to tingle, and there's nothing he can do about it because people become adults like that. However, as long as the ending is good, everything is fine. Sid admits that he never managed to recover all the gold coins he was supposed to collect. There were 3,000, but now there are only 500. Considering the current exchange rate, it amounts to just 50 million Zynis. It might not be enough to support him for the rest of his life. However, he thinks carefully about it and realizes that it might be sufficient because the lawless city will always be there and there are still 2 standing towers. If he faces financial hardship, he can always return. The lawless city is a cash cow. In the night, we see Shadow on the train with the white-haired girl, and he tells her it's time to hear what she has to say. And that's how this episode concludes. To continue watching the new episodes, please subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. The story by some bandits stealing. The head of the bandits tells the workforce that Matoshi has been making a lot of money lately, and that 100 million should be chump chang for them. He says that they are growing like crazy, and that their boss thinks it's time for them to stop the leader. He then rips one of the workers' clothes, which makes the girl wonder who their boss is. The boss said it was Garter, and he is in charge of all the buying and selling in Midgar. They made him mad. The girl says that everyone knows that Garter is a good guy, and that he is the president of a big business alliance. He follows the lessons of God with all his heart, and has given a lot of money to the church. She tells him that he wouldn't hire people like them, and the boss says that even the most good people have a dark side that they hide. Garter only became famous because of people like them, he says. The girl says it doesn't make sense to tell them things they already know, and that's when Shadow Garden shows up. They also change their clothes, and the thieves find out that they are all Shadow Garden members. The workers then fight the thieves. Alpha thinks that this operation has greatly lowered the number of genuine members of their group. Now the shady characters with ties to the church should come forward. The next scene cuts to Cell and Poe showing Sid their brand new Matoshi clothes. They tell Sid that all the girls will be looking at them now that they're in style. Sid thinks that anything that has to do with design must have come from Zeta. He also thinks that these girls are acting crazy. Then Sid sees that something is coming off. Skelet's clothes, and Skelet sees that it's the Bitcoin sign. Poe thinks these clothes are cheap junk without the logo, and they see the shop's name under the Mitoshi logo. He says that the real mitosis sign is more like this one, which sounds a little off. Hard to understand, then Sid believes that Alpha and the girls chose all of his clothes and that everything he is wearing is a copy from a past life. He thought this was the way people dressed in the city because he saw people walking around in suits, but it looks like it's all what Alpha is doing. They are using what he knows to get a bigger share of the market, and he thinks that the people they are taking business from must not like it. All of this will end tonight, though. Shadow puts on a spy outfit and says that everyone will know his name tonight. Shadow then meets Yukimai and tells her to call him by his real name instead of Shadow. I'm John Smith. According to her, having him join their group is encouraging, and John agrees, saying that it's also good for him. John is then told by Yukime that Garter called a meeting of the big corporate alliance not long ago. The purpose of the meeting was to make their defenses against Mitoshi stronger. She says that Mitoshi may fall sooner than they thought, and John says that their plan hasn't changed. He says that while Mitoshi and the Alliance fight each other, they will take everything. Yukime says that they will need John to help them, and she tells him to be careful. Like in the Alliance, there is a swordsman from the underground who rose above the Garter and took charge of it. He's called Getten the Sword Devil, and she knows him very well. She says he is a dangerous sir, someone who will do anything to get what he wants. Jen then leaves, and Yukime says she can't wait to see who stays in this fight until the end. The scene then changes to all of the city's big shops having an autumn sale. Poe and Skell go there to try to find cheap clothes. When Sid saw this, he thought that Alpha and the girls had gone too far. They were selling exclusive goods without caring about the local distributors, and they were making enemies with all the big companies, which is likely what led to this sale. Since Mitoshi has made enemies with the rest of the business, he doesn't see any hope for the future. So he's going to destroy everything and start over. They're going to hurt Mitoshi, and he's going to hurt them. He's going to start a new company after everything, and he will make Alpha and the girls the top managers. He is going to change the name. A guy will be born again. The next scene shows Poe paying for some clothes he ruined during the sale. Sid then sees the bill the seller gave them. His change doesn't make sense. Paul says that these are the brand new bills that the major corporate alliance just put out. He then asks his friends what bills they were using before this Poe shows him. On the bill that the Bitcoin Bank and Skeel said they put out, it says that they can now use them anywhere, not just at the Bitcoin store. The town, then Sid remembers that he told the girls about banks and how credit is made, but he couldn't remember much about it. So he quickly ended the talk. He doesn't believe those girls were able to use that information to open their own bank and money. Also, copies have been made, which gives Sid an idea. He sees that the original Bitcoin Bank uses colorful printing and a carefully placed watermark, but this copy has a simpler layout and uses Caro printing. He then says that when he was a kid, he thought about using a printing machine to make a copy of a bill, but the owner of the printing shop scolded him for it. Now that he is an agent, though, he can do it, and he takes the money. As the scene changes, John Smith is now talking to Yukime about this. He says that these gold coins are worth more than they are because of an illusion called credit. Yukime asks John if he's talking about money or paper, and John says that he is. Then he tells Yukime about the value of creating credit. He says that this is how a piece of paper that is worth less than a copper coin can be worth more than gold. Yukime is shown bills made by both Mitoshi and the Alliance. He asks her if she saw any difference between the two bills. One of them has a watermark and the other doesn't, says Yukime. John also says that the Alliance's bill has a rougher style. Yukime figures out that this means it would be simple to copy, and Jen says they are going to make fake money and make a lot of money from it. Then Yukime says that the Alliance's bill can only be used in the royal capital, and if they forge them, the police will find out right away where they came from. John can't believe he hadn't thought of such an easy thing before. He then asks Yukime in a scary voice if this is really what she thinks. Then Yukim figures out that John really wants the fake bills to be found because it will cause panic among the people and make this piece of paper worthless. When people start to doubt the value of the paper bill, they will rush to the banks to exchange it for gold, and if they get ahead of the game, they can control the profits. There's no doubt in her mind that John had this plan the whole time. However, John has no idea what she's talking about. After asking her if this is really what she thinks, Yuki tries to think of something else but can't. She then says that it is what she thinks. Soon after, John gets off the train at the next stop. Yuki may think that John was just trying to see how honest she was. She believes it would have been bad if she had given in to the pressure and rambled on without giving it much thought. Shadow Garden kills a carriage driver to steal his horse, and we see Sid eating ramen and enjoying the thrill of having a new secret identity. He feeds the person sitting next to him, and then he sees Delta being fed. He doesn't know why she's there. Delta asks Shadow for more, and Shadow gives it to her. He then rides her on his back, and Delta says Sid smells like foxes. Sid says that he has been shooting foxes, and Delta says that she wants to go hunting with the boss too. Delta tells Sid that she was hunting when he asks her what she is doing in the city. Delta says that Alpha told her to hunt, which makes Sid wonder why she was hunting. Sid then asks her what she's been hunting, and Delta says she was hunting. There are bandits who ask Sid if he likes hunting. Sid says he does, but he can't do it right now. Delta still wants him to go hunting with her, and Sid says Alpha did want to see Delta, so she must have gone to the city. Delta remembers this. Alpha did ask her to meet with her. Delta is confused when Sid tells her to hurry up and see Alpha. The scene then cuts to Geter telling Gan that all of the soldiers they sent after Matoshi are now dead. Gan thinks that the bandits aren't going to be able to beat them, so he tells Jeter that he will send the Clovers after Matoshi. Jeter tells Gan that the Clovers are elite assassins that Tainen chose himself, and he says that with them on the job, Mitoshi's secrets are just as safe as theirs. After that, we see Delta and Shadow hunting. Shadow and some bandits believe that Delta can't understand the order to stay. Her way of hunting is a massacre on one side, and it does make gathering treasure easier, but he doesn't get to enjoy the fight as much. Then one of the thieves figures out who Delta is. Zebra is his name, and he introduces himself to Sarah. Delta sees that he smells like her father, and Zebra says that he is her big brother. He doesn't understand how Delta is still living since their father killed her when she was possessed, but Delta tells him that she is just good at hide and seek. This is when Zebra asks Delta to let her go. He says that he is now working for Gan, but Delta kills him. He shadow asks her if she's sure, and Delta tells him that she doesn't need a weak brother. She says that since her dad is the leader of their clan and has over 1,000 kids and many loves, losing one won't hurt him. She says that only strong people can stay alive in their clan, and Shadow thinks that this is what he should expect from a Theano as he walks back to his room. Delta agrees with Shadow that the Anthrop lands sound like a great place to visit. She also says that Shadow can become their chief if he beats her father. Once he does that, he can have a lot of lovers and have a lot of babies, making the clan the best it has ever been. Shadow says that this won't happen, and the scene cuts to Geddon. Zebra has been beaten, and Garter says that their numbers have been dropping a lot lately. If this keeps up, it will have an effect on the people who run their public businesses. He also says that they spent a lot of money setting up their bank and currency, and that they might want to stop wasting their money and take a few steps. You can hear Geddon saying that he put Garter in charge of all business in the city, and that Zebra was the weakest of the Clovers. The man asks Garter to call the 3 that are still alive. Mitosi seems stronger than he thought, and he can see why the cult saw them as a threat. Please watch parts 5-8. The rest of the parts can be found on my channel. If you liked the video, please like and share it. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell icon to get new videos. Updates on the anime review. Our episode begins with Alpha is told by Gamma that they are able to keep damage to their supply trains to a minimum and are currently leading the market. The Big Business Alliance isn't as smart as the Shadows, so their plans to provide paper money and credit are too much for them to handle. Alpha says that what they thought would happen did happen, but she asks Gamma not to do anything that could make it look like Matoshi has a link. When she talks to Shadow Garden, she says that trust can be broken in an instant. Nue then shows up and says that they have some unpleasant guests. Gamma thinks that Gan doesn't have much patience, and Alpha thinks that he might not be able to control his theory and thrope nature. Omega tells Nui to take care of the guests instead of Alpha, who wants her to do it. People are shocked to hear this because they know Gamma isn't good for fighting. Alpha then asks Omega and Kai to go with Gamma. After that, they set out on this mission to fight the invaders, and Alpha thinks it's fine for the two of them to go with Gamma. Then we learn that the invaders are getting clovers. They think it was too easy to get in and think that the transports must have security guards protecting them. Someone tells them that their goal is to kill the boss. Luna and Gamma, Omega and Kai then follow. Then each of them fights one of the clovers, and Gamma fights the last one. So that one clover who is still alive thinks he is the strongest, and that he can handle Gamma since she doesn't have any protectors. After that, he strikes Gamma, but it doesn't hurt her. Much Gamma then tries to hit the clover with her slime blade, but she fails. The clover thinks Gamma is fast, but she's not even close. Then Gamma figures out that the clover's footwork is part of the Leek Tenroy style of fencing. She thinks she can easily counter him now that she knows his style. But none of her moves hit, so the clover thinks she is just an amateur. The clover then hits her with a sword, but it doesn't hurt Gamma much, and the sword gets messed up. What's going on here, the clover asks, and Gamma thinks he must be a skilled warrior to hit her. She lets out her magic power and tells him that he will have to face her full fury. Then she remembers that Lord Shadow told him to fight by putting all of her magic power into the attack and hacking away, since her stats are so ridiculously high. Gamma does that, but she trips and falls on some rubble before she lands. The attack and her strike cause an explosion by accident. Then Gamma tries to imply that the clover set the trap for her ahead of time. The clover decides he doesn't want to deal with this woman any further and tells his men to go back to him. And Gamma tells Kai that she now knows the secret to the clover's strength and will show him her full power. Kai shows him that they have dealt with his men. Then she tries to attack the clover again, but this time she trips and falls. Her sword hits the running clover and kills him. The scene cuts to Tan finding out that the clovers haven't come back, while Gamma acts like this was all part of her plan. But GTR tells him that they haven't heard from them or the watch team they sent afterward. He also says that some people in the Alliance are connected to Matoshi, and that this event might make them talk. Gan tells him to be quiet, and Garter then walks away. Gan then realizes he was naive to think those bandits would do anything, and he wishes he could have used some of the kids. However, the group is short on both people and money now that Exanon and that old man have died. He thinks this is the perfect chance to show how powerful he is. The big corporate alliance is just a pawn for him. All he needs them to do is stay afloat long enough for him to finish making plans. Then Gan remembers some old memories. We see that he met the stylish bandit Slayer before, and that he was the one who took away Gon's sight. The scene then cuts to Alexia and Sid practicing their fight, and Alexia easily beats him. She is praised for her sword skills, and the scene cuts to them buying dumplings and talking while they eat them. Sid says Alexia will keep getting better if she keeps doing this. He has to wonder if she changed her mind or if she finally understood something. He thinks that this is what usually makes a character change quickly. But Alexia says she still needs more power. Even though Sid doesn't ask her why, she tells him anyway. She tells them that Rose is now off by herself and that the king of Oriana has died. All she could do was watch. They go about their daily lives, but she says she needs more power because the world is always moving forward and she will fall behind if she doesn't. She says that time has been going faster since she started making choices to move forward. She wishes Sid could be as relaxed as she is. Next, the scene cuts to John Smith eating ramen at a stand. There, he meets one of Yuki Mei's friends, and she tells him that the show is over. Yuki tells Jen that they have set up their factory in an old mine that has been abandoned. The domain used to be run by Viscount Grease, but now it's run by a broken-down local judge, and they don't have any extra staff to check out the abandoned mine. She says that they are sending the bills to the lawless city and then bringing them to the royal capital of Midgar through a fake distribution route. Then John looks at the real and fake notes. Yuki Mei asks John if he can tell which one is fake, and John says it's easy because one of them is made of slightly rougher paper. And there are different ways that the ink bleeds. He says he doesn't need to point out any more differences. Then we see that both of them are sure that one of these is fake, but they can't agree on which one it is. Yuki says she will start from scratch, but Shadow says there's no need because he is the only one who can tell the difference. Then Yuki says she will start giving them out right away. She also says that once more bills are being given out. The police will look for the source and she expects John to handle that as planned. But she tells him to let her decide what will happen with Gan. She says Gan took her mother, her friends, and her whole village away, so now it's her turn to take everything from him. Jen says yes and tells her to be careful, not to go in the wrong direction. The scene then cuts to Alpha and the others learning about the fake bills. Alpha thinks that their choice to accept their competitors' bills paid off, while Gamma says that this is what they were supposed to do from the start. This was done so they could take credit away from their currency. Alpha is curious about how much of this is actually being used. What Gamma says is that it's not much and the people who used them didn't know the bills were fake. Alpha asks if the Alliance knows about this, and Gamma replies that they don't yet, and they're working hard to print more bills with no care in the world. She tells Alpha that if the people find out about this, they will be in a lot of trouble if they don't make the Alliance aware of it. Some people might start to doubt paper money, which is bad for business. Alpha then wonders if their whole plan was to cause a credit crash. She believes this is not possible because it would be bad for the Alliance as well. Alpha asks Gamma to find out where the fake bills are coming from, and she wonders who could be behind it all and why. The scene then cuts to Garter telling Gan about the fake bills. He says that a cashier at their corporate store found one a while ago. When Gan asks Garter which of these bills is the fake, Garter says that it's probably the poorly made one, but he's not sure. Gan then asks Garter to find out where the fake bill came from, and Garter leaves. Gaiden thinks that the amount of banknotes they have in circulation now is higher than the value of all the Alliance's assets, which means they have credit. Mitsai must also think the same thing. He says that the only thing that gives paper money value is the idea of credit, and if everyone found out about the fake bills, it would cause fear, and people would start to doubt the real bills they have in their wallet. And this will make the credit given to paper money fall apart. He says that this is why they have been getting ready to print their own fake money. By ending credit, they would put both the Alliance and Mitosi out of business. According to the cult, this was his job. However, the plan wasn't meant to go into action until they found all the assets that were hidden in the Alliance. He believes that getting those things back will take some time, and he questions whether the cult knew this when they made their plan. He thinks that the group will lose a lot of money if he does nothing. The scene then cuts to Rose boarding at number 664-665. As the train from Lawless City brings the fake bills on board. Number 664. It tells the other teams that their job is to get the fake bills back and lets the other teams look for them. As the boss, she tells Rose not to make any choices on her own and to do what she says. They then get on the train. They see that the train doesn't have any security, but Rose sees that there are some threads put out here. It's too late though because Johns gets 664 and 665. Having threads, the threads are too strong for 664's slime knife to cut through. Wrong Rose then asks John who he is, and John tells her his name is John. Rose tries to hit him, but John's thread stops her. He tells him that he knew they would be the first to figure out his plan, but it's too early for them to learn anymore, so he kicks them off the train. The train is calling Rose, but 664 stops her. She tells her that they will fall for the same trick if they go without a plan. The train then goes out of sight and 664 tells them to back this to Jime for now. Rose wonders why she is acting so weak. Thanks for watching parts 1 through 5. The rest will be on my channel. If you liked the video, please like and share it. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell icon to get new videos, updates on the anime review. Our episodes start with 664-665, where Rose is telling Alpha and Gamma what happened. Alpha is confused. Children Gamma thinks that John Smith might also live in the Lawless City if he is a new member of the name. Rose then tells them that John Smith is very skilled and might even be stronger than the Seven Shadows. 664 tells her to keep quiet, but she won't. 66 then walks her out of the room. Alpha thinks this is another problem they need to solve, and Gamma says she told Zeta to look for what they talked about, and the fact that she hasn't called them yet must mean the job is going well. Gamma should send Delta to deal with John Smith, and Alpha hopes that they can end this quickly so that they can take a break. The scene then cuts to John Smith on the money transfer train, where he sees Delta following. Delta then gets on the train. She tries to attack John, but he stops her with his threads. After that, she tries to hit John a few more times, but each time John stops her with his threads. Delta then destroys the whole train and cart. She tries to attack John from above, but John blocks her path with the debris she made. Delta tries to get away, and then she smells John and turns out that he is really Shadow. Shadow asks her as she jumps on top of him, "Why is Delta here?" Delta says she was hunting John Smith because Alpha told her to. She is curious if this means that Shadow is John Smith. Delta says she can't beat John and will tell Alpha what she found out. John says he is. John asks her to wait and tells her that he is busy with a secret task. Delta thinks this is cool because he says it's something that only he can do. They talk about how she wants to help John, but John says that only he can do it. He says that Delta will have to tell Alpha about his secret mission, and Delta says that she is on a mission for Lady Alpha right now, and Alpha will be mad at her. Jen tells her that he will give her a new mission if she fails, and he reminds her that his orders are more important than Alpha's. John says that Alpha won't get mad at her, which makes Delta wonder if that's true. He also tells her that he will reward her if she finishes the mission, which makes Delta happy. Is John going to do anything she asks? John tells her that he will as long as he is able to. Then John asks himself what job he should give her. He tells her to go to Lawless City and beat up Juggernaut, who lives in the Black Tower. Delta's excited about the prize, even though she doesn't fully understand this. She still goes to hunt Juggernaut. Jen believes that everything is happening to protect the world, and he believes Delta will be back when the weather gets warmer. The scene then cuts to Gamma telling Alpha that they found a piece of Delta's clothing after a tough fight. They believe Delta would never quit a mission. After thinking about it, they decide that she must be dead. Alpha asks them to keep looking because she hopes to at least get better. Then her body Gamma says that the number of fake bills is also going up, and if things keep going this way, people will start to doubt the value of paper money. Plus, this will change Matosi, so they will need a plan for how to handle this. She tells them they need to get rid of John Smith, and Alpha says John Smith planned from the start to cause a credit problem. She tells Jime that John Smith plans to take everything for himself while they and the group fight. Jime is shocked to hear this. The scene then cuts to some messengers from the Cult of Diablos telling Gan that the cult is worried about these strange fake bills because they will speed up the fall of credit, which will cost the cult a lot of money. They say Gan is to blame and getting kills. This is one of the messages in anger. After Gan asks if this is being done by John Smith, the other messenger says that John Smith is the name they found when they did their research. Then Gan asks Garter to set up checkpoints to look into all the cargo coming into and going out of the royal city. Garter tells Gan that they don't have the power to do that. The other runner is then killed, and Getten is told to do whatever it takes to find the source of the fake money. Alexia is carrying some books when the scene changes to Iris meeting her. Iris says she didn't expect to see Alexia in the house. Right now, Alexia says that the school is still being rebuilt, which is why she went to the archives to find some specialized book. Iris asks Alexia what kind of books they are, and she says they are about a lot of different things. If Alexia is trying to be smart, she says she is doing this to figure out where she should hold her sword. She also says that since spring, she has had to face a lot of truths. Nothing will change if she keeps swinging her sword around aimlessly, which is why she wants to use it where it needs to be used. Before she can stand there, she has to earn the right to do so, and the way to get there sometimes starts in a place they don't need. The blade. Alexia is still talking, but Iris leaves in the middle of their chat. The scene then cuts to Beta telling Shadow that rumors about the fake bills are already spreading in the capital. She says that soon, the royal family will have to do something, and that the Alliance's illegal checks have only made things worse. Beta then sees Shadow writing things down. Shadow tells Beta that he's doing this because it will have an effect. The bet on the future goes on. Shadow looks over her paper and does some math. He then says this doesn't make sense. Beta asks her if she made a mistake in her research. She says she will look into it again, but Shadow tells her they don't have time. She then says she has something else to report, and Delta tells her that they sent her to deal with Smith, but they haven't heard from her in a while. They think that she was killed in battle, and Shadow can't believe he caused such a big mistake. He also says that Delta is almost gone somewhere far away. Beta thinks that Lord Shadow is just being polite. She asks Shadow if he can take care of John Smith, and Shadow says that he has. Other things to take care of, he then tells Shadow that he told them to encrypt their notes, and Shadow asks him to do it. Shadow tells her that he wrote the notes in 5 different kinds of language that he made up. She tries to read the notes that he wrote for Beta, but she can't. We can see that he just used some languages from a past life. Beta then asks him to teach her. The Shadow then gives her a note and says he will teach her if she can figure it out. The scene then cuts to a checkpoint run by one of the big corporate alliances. John breezes right through it after his threads broke the checkpoint. Then Alpha shows up and fights John. John blocks her strikes with his threads, though. Then they get into a fierce fight, and Alpha figures out that John is Shadow after seeing how he moves. When she asks Shadow why he is doing all of this, John tells her that he has left. Name like that. John tells Alpha that he sent Delta to a faraway place when she asks him what happened to her. Alpha says that this doesn't tell her anything, and she changes into a form that she doesn't like. Her words mean that she can't understand what Shadow does, but she wants to help and understand him. She wants to be there for the man who saved her, and she's not sure if Shadow no longer needs her as much. When John says that she'll get it when this is all over, Alpha says that she won't keep bringing him down. Shadow tries to bind her with his threads over and over, but Alpha always changes into her fake form to get away from them, and she attacks him several times. Next Gen grabs her sword and tells her that this mist-like form is great, but she still needs to appear to attack, and he blows her away. She tells him that M doesn't have her, and he asks to come back and not leave her alone. The scene then cuts to John meeting Yukum. She tells him that they have traded almost all of the fake bills for gold, and that the Alliance's funds must be almost gone at this point. She says that she has been collecting real banknotes, and that all she has to do now is cash them. The Union will then be over. People will be in a hurry to get their money back, but the Union won't have enough money to meet the demand, and it will fail. This will also affect Mitosi, and the businesses that have kept the kingdom's economy going will shut down. It will be hard for the government to keep order. So this is their chance to hide, destroy proof, and avoid being caught. To John, this seems like the best time to end it. Yukim tells him that they would not have been able to carry out their plan without John's help. She talks about her past and says that when she was young, she lived with her mother in the village. At that time, the great hero Shiva had just died, and the Thean Throw clans were thrown into a whirlwind of war. The strong clans were always fighting to get the crown of the great hero. This put the weaker clans at their hands and forced them to fight to stay alive. The weaker clans tried to join forces with other clans that shared their values. To strengthen their alliance, the clan of the Great Wolves and the Spirit Foxes were chosen to marry. She was picked to marry Patriarch Geddon, the son of the Great Wolves. There was love between them, and everyone in the town wished them well. But one day, there was fighting between two large clans. Their village got destroyed when it was hit by enemy fire. Gain then told her that he had made an offer to the others, telling them that they could only stay alive if they agreed to take on more power. They would have become very powerful and been able to stand up to the bigger clans if they had taken these pills. But Yukim Mei's mother refused, and the others did too. That's why he had to kill her. He then asked Yukim to join the gang as well, but Yukim Mei tried to attack him, and he killed her too. He warned her that they would take from him if he didn't stop taking from them. Yukim Mei says that Geddon took everything from her. She worked as a prostitute on the battlefield after that, and she did everything she could to get to the top of Lawless City. She then tells John that her real goal is to find Gan and take everything from him. She says she's going to settle this now. John is told to believe her and wait for her return. She then goes to have a fight with Get Tan and other places. Delta really did destroy the Black Tower. Thanks for watching part 6. The rest of the parts will be on my channel. If you liked the video, please like and share it. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell icon to get new videos, updates on the anime review. After that, we see that shops in the capital won't take alliance notes, and people are waiting in line at banks to switch their money. The people then see that alliance banks are suddenly closing one after the other. This makes them believe that the rumors are true, and that these banknotes are just useless pieces of paper. After this, the scene changes to Garrett telling Geddon that they still don't know where the fake bills are coming from, but they do know who is behind it all. He says it was Yukim from the White Tower in Lawless City, who was taken there in a carriage from the Snow Fox Corporation. The gold coins that were traded make Geddon think that it must have been a mistake and that he knew she had turned to prostitution. Next, he hears the sound of bells and knows what it is. It's the bell he gave Yukimi. The scene then cuts to Alpha telling Gamma that Shadow doesn't need her anymore because he has hit heights that only he can reach. In a message, Gamma tells her that the Big Business Alliance will fail and that they have closed. In all of their storefronts, riots are breaking out in every bank office, making the people even more angry. Customers are also putting pressure on their banks. They are demanding to swap their money. If things keep going the way they are, soon their bank vault will be empty too, and they won't be able to stay alive. There was a credit crash gamma that thought it would have been fine if they had something to make the market feel safe, like showing off huge stacks of gold coins. Shadow is the one who put the fake bills into circulation and caused the credit crash. So Alpha says it doesn't matter anymore. He gave up what he wanted, and this is what he got. Gamma says Shadow would never leave them. And Alpha says they didn't live up to his standards, even though he gave them the best environment and the most knowledge. Gamma doesn't believe this is true, and Alpha realizes that she promised to save Shadow's life. After that, Nuya goes there and sees that both Alpha and Gamma are sad. She still gives them a report in which she says that they have found proof that Gain was running an operation for the cult of Diablo and that he was working with others to print fake money in order to go bankrupt. Midoshi Gamma is surprised that Gan was ready to destroy himself along with them, even though he didn't know how they were connected to Shadow Garden. While they were fighting the economic wars, Shadow saw the truth and acted on his own. Alpha then sees that Shadow created this entire scenario. He cut him off, changed his name, and started passing out fake money before the cult could carry out their plan, but she doesn't get why he did it. After that, Beta shows up and says that Zeta was able to figure out what Shadow's message meant. The message makes Alma cry, and she starts to believe that Shadow hasn't really left them after all. In the message, Shadow says he's sorry for becoming Trayer and that he needs to give up his old name and print fake money in order to carry out his plans. With the help of an accomplice, the gold coins he has recovered are stored in the facility where they all helped him rescue his sister. And he knows that they might resent him for this, but it was for the best. Beta can't believe that Shadow did all this. Gamma thinks they should have known about them. She says that he found the cult's plan for any of them and took action against them by passing out fake money. Before they could do anything, he raised a lot of money. With that money, Matoshi will be able to make it through the credit crunch, and the cult will no longer have the Alliance on their side. Beta believes that all of this is possible because Shadow Garden knows more about how to make credit, and Alpha believes that he hid his name to cut him off from them and hide the fact that the fake bills, Matoshi, and Shadow Garden are all linked. He set up his fake printing business in a place they knew, and even marked the spot of his vault. Beta thinks he was fooling his friends before he was fooling his enemies. Now they just need to get the gold. Gamma then asks Delta where she is, and Delta comes back. They're glad to hear that Delta is okay, and she tells them she went on a secret mission. She says she can't talk about the task because it was a secret, and Alpha figures out that Shadow asked her to help him. The scene then cuts to John Smith killing some people. He says that lately he's been busy beating up bad guys who are coming to find out how the fake bills work. He doesn't care about this at all, because Yuki May told him she wasn't doing it for money, which means he can keep this money all to himself. After that, when he goes back to the hideout to get the money, he finds that it does not exist anymore. The girls working for Yukim then inform him that they have lost contact with her, and Gan must be the one behind this. John then thinks that Gan might be the one who took his money as well, and he gets angry at this. He says that Gan tried to take something important to him, and that Gan needs to return it. The scene then cuts to Gan fighting Yukim, who has knocked Getten to the ground. Getten thinks that no one would have taken from them if he had the power that Yukim has now. He can't believe that Yukim is using this power to take from him. This is the end, says Yukim. But Gan doesn't accept this, and he says that he can still make this work if he had more money and power. Yukim says that she doesn't know what changed Getten, but although he slew her mother, he also saved their village and her life. She would like to think that the man she knew is still somewhere in there, and she tries to leave bidding farewell to Getten. But Getten uses a tear of Diablo, and he attacks Yukim from behind the pill, increases his strength and returns his eyesight to him, and he tries to go for the finishing blow, but John punches him. Gan can't believe that John came here voluntarily to be killed by him, and Jen attacks him, and he says that he only came here to retrieve something precious to him. Gan thinks that John is talking about Yukim, and the two of them fight. Yukim thinks that it would be just fine if John abandoned her, but he called her precious, and she thinks that he is a compassionate guy. Gan takes down Gan, and he asks him if he has something to say. Gan states that he has nothing to say, and he tries to take more tears of Diablo. But John kicks him in the face, and he asks him to talk if he has something to say. Gan states that he doesn't, and John keeps beating him, asking if he has anything to say. Geddon then says that John's power is just like the person who took the light from his eyes, and if only he had this kind of power, then things would have been different. He says that he didn't want to let them take from him, and he mentions that he will leave his treasure to him, pointing at Yukai. And he dies. John states that his treasure is in good hands, and he saves the injured Yukai from falling, and he heals her wounds. Yukai then learns that it was John who saved her from Gan all those years ago, and she thanks him while crying. We see that John thinks that Gain pointed at the snow, suggesting that the coins are buried underneath it, and the scene then cuts to dark nights, led by Iris conducting a raid on the Alliance. She finds out that the vault of the Alliance is empty, and she asks the other knights to arrest Garter for disrupting the bazaar. Yukime then returns to the people who work for her, and they are glad to see her all right. They ask her where Smith is, and she tells them that he has gone to perform a proper funeral. Yukime then sees the empty vault, and she is contacted by Alpha. Alpha states that she is from Shadow Garden, and judging from her reaction, she thinks that John must not have told her about this. We see that she knows about Getten and Yukime, and Alpha says that the Alliance has been destroyed, but they recovered what they needed before the royal investigation began. She gives Yukime a letter from Gain, and she mentions that this writing is difficult to read, but they believe that it's addressed to her. Yukime states that Gon's handwriting has always been messy, as he is not the type of man who could sit comfortably at a desk. Alphat explains to Yukime that the Cult of Diablos is the organization that led Getten astray. She elaborates that the cult is a group of people who take advantage of a person's weakness and cast them into the darkness. They are fighting to stop. The cult and Shadow is the one leading them. Mitoshi is a front company for Shadow Garden, and Shadow has been pulling the strings from the beginning. Alpha apologizes for collecting all the gold coins, and she mentions that this is how they are going to survive the credit collapse. They have also taken over all of the Alliance's outlets, and their position in the market will soon be obsolete. She mentions that this was Shadow's plan all along, and she is well welcome to treat him as a traitor for this. If she wants, Yukime states that she has no such intentions, and Alpha mentions that they are prepared to welcome her into their ranks. Yukime realizes that Alpha wants to treat her as their underbelly, and she accepts her proposal. The scene then cuts to Shadow digging holes in the snow, with Delta to find the supposedly buried money, but he doesn't find a thing. He thinks that he is also getting radio silence from Yukime, and Mitoshi is continuing to do. Fine. Delta wonders if Shadow is going to do what she says after they are finished, digging the holes, and Shadow states that he will do what is within his capabilities. He states that he is about to set out on a journey, and he asks her to think about what she wants and tell him when he gets back. Shadow then thinks that the others must be furious with him after his little stunt, and they are going to need some time to cool off. He will come back nonchalantly at the end of winter, and when he does, he won't apologize and act normal. He thinks that this should be enough to exasperate them into giving up, and he then leaves. Delta then finds something while digging, and she tries to tell Shadow about it, but he has already gone. Thanks for watching parts 1 to 7. The rest of the parts will be on my channel. Please like and share the video if you enjoyed it, and make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to keep getting new anime recap updates. The show starts with Sid in an Oriana kingdom where the owner gives him tea. It sounds like this is all she has. They said they needed the expensive things like coffee for the war effort as they took them away. She wonders if Sid has seen what happened to their once beautiful main streets. She says that Sid was unlucky to get involved in all of this. Sid believes that after leaving the Midgar country, he went wherever his fancy took him, which gave him a chance to look at himself again. He started this trip to learn more about himself, and he thinks that up to this point he has done the things that he thought would help him become the Eminence in Shadow. But he never had a clear picture of what the Eminence in Shadow should be like. He was happy to do whatever looked like Eminence in the dark, but now he's not sure if he should keep going that way. We see that numbers 664 and 666 are having breakfast next to Sid. Rose, as he thinks about whether he should let things go on like this, is also staying in the same place, and she has a bad dream that she kills her father. She wakes up and thinks that First Castletown used to be a beautiful place, but even this city couldn't escape the fires of war. Her father tells her that he will never forgive Rose. She thought there was something she could do. She might have joined Shadow Garden if she thought that getting stronger would help her save her kingdom. Numbers 664 and 65 then get together and say that number 559 will be in charge of the task today. 664 bears mind. That number 559 is the best fighter. He beat number 89 and now has the right to face the numbers. Rose tells 664 that they should talk about it when he asks her if she has anything on her mind. If there is, Rose says it's not important, and they meet 559 at night. 559 asks them if they know what the task is, and 664 says that they do. 559 tells them to follow her, and she says that this stronghold fell to the Perv faction 2 days ago. It's just a small castle town that isn't very important. The cult, on the other hand, has quietly sent their most elite soldiers, the Children of Diablos, to take it. This means that something is here, and their job is to find it. 559 then asks Rose if she knows why she was picked for this mission. Rose says it's because she knows Fort first, but 559 tells her that's not true. The only reason 559 says she asked Rose directly is because she got her powers straight from Lord Shadow. It makes Rose wonder if this isn't also true for 664 and 665. They tell her that the 7 shadows led them here. The number 665 says that it's true for almost everyone in Shadow Garden, except the 7 shadows. And the number 559 says that Lord Shadow also gave her her skills. She says that the 2 of them are the only ones who aren't one of the 7 shadows, but Rose is weak. 559 says that she is Lord Shadow's faithful servant and will kill anyone who doesn't deserve his greatness. After that, they noted the Children of Diablo are going somewhere, and Rose 559 asks them, "What's that way?" Rose tells them that this road leads to some ruins. It was a memorial for soldiers who faced the demon Diablos. The scene then cuts to the ruins. When 664 sees Quad the Gale, she thinks that he is a leader in the cult, and that all of his followers are the first children. Quad then pulls out a card, and Rose sees that Nelson used the same card. The card is used by Quad to turn on the ruins, and then the Queen goes there and puts her hand on a glyph to open some kind of vault. There is a ring inside the vault, and Quad says that it is the Legends ring that Hero is protecting. Then Freya 509 tells everyone to get ready for battle, but 664 tells her that this was just a reconnaissance mission. 559 says that this ring is the key, and they will get it back. 664 asks her what she means, and 559 tells her not to worry about it. Then Rose says they have to wait because her mother is also down there. 559 says it doesn't matter, and she tries to attack the Queen, but Rose stops her. 559 is what she wants, what makes her strike her mother, and 559 tells her she doesn't need to know. Quad then says that he doesn't understand how Shadow Garden was able to find them because they don't seem to get along very well. He tells Rose and her mother that they even brought the lost Princess Rose to them and asks Rose to save her. Rose is attacked by 559, but the first children defend her, and the Queen 559 says that she knew Rose wasn't good enough to serve Lord Shadow. She tells them both that she will kill them. It turns out that the first team they sent to Fort was involved in a fight, and Rose saw her mother with the cult, which was sad. As usual, Purvis's hat was missing, and the Night Beyond guys were missing too. Gamma asks Nu if this was a trap, and Nu tells her that it was too well planned to be a trap. As Gamma says, they have been constantly getting in the way of the ruin robberies. But the 9th spot of the round's Night Beyond men, named Mirid, still hasn't shown up, and he needs to be patient. She does not find it strange that he has been able to rule the Oriana kingdom for so long from behind the scenes, but his pawns don't seem to be patient with him. After that, Gamma finds out Rose has come back to Oriana kingdom from reading the newspaper, and she thinks that Assad is getting restless. He has used up a lot of pawns trying to look into the ruins and keep Shadow Garden in check since he has to deal with civil unrest now. The security around the Oriana capital has gotten a lot better. So Gamma asks Nue to tell Lambda to send more troops into the capital. Nue says that they will just let the cult have Princess Rose for now, which will make it more likely for Perv, Assad, and Mirid to make a move. Gamma then believes that everything started when Rose joined the group in the stage, and it was their lord's plan to lead the princess to this point. This makes her wonder how he sees things. At the end of this, Sid thinks that there is no one left to take the throne of the Oriana kingdom, and that there is a fight between the pro and anti-perv groups. That's what he thinks every man dreams out. Fights between factions. Sid then finds out that there must be a place in all that where an eminence in shadow can step in and look cool. That Rose has gone back to Oriana, and he thinks it would be cool if a new leader ended the strife. Rose seems like the right person to be the new leader after being led to victory by a mysterious figure. Sid then wonders why Rose killed her father in the first place. He also wonders if she really wanted to be queen that badly. As the Eminence in shadow, he will help Rose become the next monarch after she does. He thinks Rose might be trying to be a ruler. The tyrant Rose will finally stand in the way of the heroes, and the Eminence in shadow, who used to help the tyrant, will step in to help them. Some men from the military then come to get money from the owner. The owner tells them that she just gave them the money yesterday, but they still try to take what she has left. Sid thinks this is great. The owner tells him to stop, and the men wonder if she would like to share her body with them. Instead, Sid acts like a wimp and tells the men to stop. But they beat him up and take the money. The business owner then asks Sid if he's okay. Sid says he is, but they took her money. The owner tells her that it's okay and that she is used to violent behavior because she used to be a prostitute in Lawless City. That's how we learn her name is Marie. The prostitute that Shadow saved the scene then cuts to Sid leaving the inn. He tries to pay Marie, but she won't take it because Sid saved her. Her Sid then leaves, and after a few days, he feels like he's not making progress. He feels like he has tried many things over the last few days to make the birth of Tyrant Rose a reality, but none of them have worked. He remembers going to a prison to experience what it would be like to be locked up, and then he made a spectacular jailbreak. He joined the army of volunteers and helped them beat the shadows. In the end, though, a bunch of old guys got all the credit because he went a little too far. Sid thinks that things shouldn't be like this and that the repair should stand out without standing out. After that, Sid hears the militiamen talking about wealth in the ruins on the other side of the mountains and kills them all. He also takes all the money they have saved up in other places. Marie feels like she doesn't have enough money to buy food or pay her rent this month. She believes she should have put aside her pride and asked Sid to pay. The way things are going, she'll have to sell her body again. Then she hears someone outside her door. A money bag and Shadow's face catch her attention. She can't believe he's been watching over her the whole time. Then we see 559 fighting the first kids. She's killed all of them except for Quad. 5559 fought all of the first children non-stop for 3 days and nights, which Quad can't believe. But he sees that she is becoming weaker now. After an easy win over 559, he tells her and everyone on her team that he is going to punish them. He believes that with Rose by his side, he can rise above Perv and become the next knight of the rounds. If he gets 559 right, then Noti. His Shadow is above her, and Shadow uses his skills to heal her and grow back her severed arm 559 after this. ES beats Quad, and Shadow also heals 664 and 6165. They ask Shadow what he or she is doing here. 559 tells Shadow that if the ruins are through here, they are. That Shadow Garden has been lied to by 666, but Shadow doesn't get what she means. 559 asks him to kill 666, but 664 tells Shadow that Rose was only trying to protect her. Shadow doesn't understand what they're talking about when Mother 559 says that the key was stolen because of her. Shad then sees a flyer and learns that Rose is going to marry Pervasive Hat. He gets mad when he learns this, and he tells Rose about it. He will punish Oriana for betraying him, and he goes to sea. Lord Shadow agrees with Rose 559, which makes 664 worry about Rose as he goes that way. Shadow wants to know why Rose killed her dad. As long as she doesn't turn into a tyrant, he thinks he needs Rose to be the next ruler if he wants to make a show about Eminence in Shadow. Thanks for watching parts 1N. The rest of the parts will be on my channel. Please like and share the video if you liked it, and make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to keep getting new ones. Updates on the anime review. We see Lambada arriving in the capital of the Oriana Kingdom with some helpers, while Amiga looks on in awe. This is all the help they will get if this is it. Lara says it's not, and she's going back to get the next group ready. She wanted to make sure of something with the people on the site, and she says she has heard that Princess Rose has joined the enemy. As her teacher, she will have to carry out her decision herself, even though she may have done this under bad circumstances. Her disobedience put her teammates in danger. Kai says that this can't happen because the Seven Shadows no longer have control over this. Lambda then realizes that a Shadow chose to handle this himself. Omega says that Lord Shadow has always been cruel to people who have stood up for them, and that no one can stop him. We can see that Sid is practicing at the same time, what he's going to say to Princess Rose when he approaches her, and he decides that falling from the sky in the middle of the day wouldn't be a good idea. He jumps over the gate instead before he can do that. When Epsilon gets there, she takes Sid into the house. She tells her that in this country, anyone whose art deserves it is respected, which is why she can walk right into the royal palace whenever she wants. Sid wonders if this is why he, as her best student, is allowed to come in. Epsilon says she's sorry for calling him her student while pushing her chest against him. Sid thinks her chest is mostly slime. She is constantly changing it with complicated magic to make it move with her center of gravity, which takes a lot of work on her part. Epsilon then asks Sid what he's thinking, and Sid says he's just thinking about what she has worked for. Epsilon then tells Sid that their spies got into the house and are now just waiting for the right time. Duke Pervasive Hat then shows up and asks Epsilon if she is planning to perform for them this afternoon. Epsilon says she is going to show off her new piece today, and Pervasive Hat says he can't wait. Epsilon hopes that her music can help Princess Rose, who just lost her father, feel better. Perv tells her that he appreciates her concern, but the princess won't be joining them today. Perv tells Epsilon who the young guy with her is because he is worried about his fiancée. Epsilon thinks that Perv must be worried. Epsilon tells him that he is her only favorite student, and the other nobles who were with Perv said they didn't know Epsilon had apprentices. Perv asks Epsilon if he has a pass to get into the house. Perv tells Epsilon that they had to change the rules for today because she brought him as a friend, so she thought this shouldn't be a problem. When Epsilon asks if they should come back another day, Perv says that they don't have to as long as the boy plays a piece for them. They all want to see how good he is. Next, Sid thinks that he likes how P never gives up on anyone, even background characters, and he plans to act like that type of background character who is kind of good at the piano. People in the room are now wondering how good Epsilon's apprentice is going to be when Sid starts to play the piano. Sid believes that most people in this country are cynical and angry, while the upper-class people live their best lives in comfort. He tells them that he will get revenge on them for the good people, and then he starts to play the Moonlight Sonata. Someone in the crowd sees him playing it, and she is mesmerized by it. People in the audience react the same way, and while playing, Sid steals the noble's things after the performance. Pervasat asks Sid his name, but Epsilon stops him before he can say it, and she says that they'll officially introduce him when he's finished his training. While she's talking, Sid notices a ring in PV's pocket and takes it too. It turns out to be the same ring that 559 was referring to as the key. While Sid is still here, he tells Epsilon that he'd like to see around the palace. The girl from earlier comes over and asks Sid to let her show him around. Margaret is her name, and she says that she is also in charge of taking care of Princess Rose. She stresses about the offer anyway, and Sid takes her up on it, even though he tries to say no. The scene cuts to her sitting in a garden, and she talks about how moved she was by his act earlier. She says he will be a great musician in no time, and she heard that some nobles are interested in him. If he works for them, she says, he can make up to 100 million zen a year. Margaret tries to get Sid to become a musician for her family because he thinks that if he does, he won't have to worry about money for every job. She tells him that she can handle everything if he lets her. She starts to cling to him, and Sid tries to get away from her. His next question is, where is Princess Rose? This makes the maid wonder if he likes the princess. She says that she used to like that woman, and that even though she was a little weird, she was kind and smart. But now that she's gone, their kingdom is in shambles, and she says that her current whereabouts are a secret, but she wouldn't mind telling him. She also says that Princess Rose is locked up in the West Tower. Sid then leaves Margaret while she keeps going on and on. He also meets a Dark Knight while he is trying to get away. The Dark Knight loves Margaret and tells Sid not to touch her. He says that they love each other, but we find out that's not true and that he's just a stalker with no luck. Then Sid gets away from him too. The scene cuts to Princess Rose in the West Tower while he keeps talking about his love. It seems like she saved her mother, but because of what she did, this country will soon be the scene of the clash of Shadow Garden and the cult of Diablo. Then she sees Sid coming up to meet her, so she gives him a big hug. She tells Sid how much she wants to see him, and he says he has something to tell her. Then they sit down and talk. Rose asks him how he got here. As an assistant to a friend who plays the piano, Sid says he snuck in and he wants to talk about her. Getting married, Rose says there's nothing to talk about, and Sid asks her if the rumor that she's getting married is true. Rose says it is, and Sid asks her to remember what she told him before she killed her father. Rose tells him to forget about that day and not think about her, but Sid says he can't. He says they are the same, and she became a dark knight even though she grew up in a country that looks down on fencers, but her friends didn't like her and didn't understand her. She made her choice by herself, even though she was alone. And just like her, no one understood his dream. Rose tells him that she will always understand how she feels, Sid's dream, even if everyone else doesn't agree with it. Sid then says that up until now, they have both stuck to the paths they have chosen, but Rose is now going against her path. To stay true to her way of life, she killed her father and stabbed her but marrying her fiancé will change this, even though she has been true to it all along. She doesn't need to give up now, and Rose tells Sid she has nothing else to say. She tells him to forget about her and find his own happiness. Sid says he can't because he needs her, and Rose says this is her only dream. After that, voices could be heard coming out of her room, which makes Perv wonder if she had a guest. Rose says no, and the Perv sees this. He tries to touch Rose, who has been crying, but she slaps his hand away. Then Perv grabs her by the neck and tells her she shouldn't act like this because they are going to be together. Soon they will be husband and wife. Rose says they will only be married in name, and Perv tells her to watch what she says as queen. Rose knows that her life rests on how agreeable she is, and we can see that Sid was listening, joining in, and learning. He thinks he will have to change his plans because of what's going on. He then thinks that maybe he shouldn't have taken the ring in the first place because it might be the wedding ring. The scene then cuts to 559, saying she's sorry for what she did wrong. In the most current mission, she says it was all because of Rose. Epsilon tells 559 that it's still too early to call her a traitor, and she asks her not to let her down because she plans to promote her to a place right below the Seven Shadows. She finally says that this failure is not her fault and that they should have told Rose about her mother. And she says that Lord Shadow is now in charge of this case because they shouldn't have let them meet one another. Now he talked to her today, but he didn't punish her. They must think he has something else in mind for her, but they don't know what it is. It will be up to Lord Shadow to handle this. And she says that the ring they found in the ruins is the current problem. They might use the key on Perv if they put too much stress on him. She says that the legends say the Oriana kingdom used the key to kill 100,000 vulture troops that were advancing on the city. This time, the power will be used to kill the Oriana kingdom. They need to figure out where the key is. Sid then gets out of the tub, and the two girls treat him well. The thing Epsilon brought up will be taken care of sooner than thought, according to Sid. Epsilon is surprised that Sid was able to do this. That was Sid's first day as an undercover spy. He said it was easy, and 559 thought their lord was great. The scene then cuts to Perv talking to Miri. He tells Miri that everything is going according to plan. Mrid says that they will have complete control over the group if they can get back the power of Black Rose. He warns Perv not to be careless, because rats are seen sniffing around. Per says not to worry because the Ring of Succession never leaves his person. And Miri says that after they win, Perv will also be given a seat in the Night of Rounds. He tells Perv not to mess up because he isn't married to the princess yet, and Perv will understand when the call is over. Perv says that he already has the key to the princess and the country in his hands. The queen then comes looking for him, and we find out that he is having an affair with her. Thanks for watching parts 10. The rest of the parts will be on my channel. Please share and like the movie. If you liked it, click subscribe and make sure the bell is on to automatically get new videos. Updates on the anime review. At the same time, the shadows keep fighting. And Zeta says that it can be hard to fight subordinates who are around. And she also says that she can't see the knight or the men or the item they are looking for. It had already been taken, and when one of the men saw her looking away, he tried to attack her. He lost, though, and is now in the castle. Shadow tells Rose that her hands were tied because Robert is holding her mother hostage. He finds it odd that Rose is worried about this. Because she had already come so far, he tells her that to free the hostage. He only needs to use his shadow eminence movements, and they will be one step closer to giving birth to the legendary tyrant. While he is thinking about something else, Margaret speaks up and tells him that she was worried about him. A scary guard and other people started wandering around the castle the night before, making it a dangerous place to be. But she says that this man has already been kicked out of the castle because he was accused of stealing food. While she talks to Shadow, Margaret presses on his hand, and the girl tells him that she will protect him from the guard who is following him. And the woman who says she is his teacher but really wants to destroy his talent. Just then, Epsilon shows up, and Margaret asks if she shouldn't be at a recital. She says she's on her break. Then she says that the nobility hates violence but loves the arts, and that this way of life goes back a very long time in Oriana's history. It's all because of the Black Rose, she says. And the Shadow gets excited and says he'd like to see a black rose rise. After all, that would go over well there. But when Epsilon hears this, she is shocked and says it is very dangerous. But she agrees because it is her master's will. And Shadow thinks she is being the same Epsilon she always is because she is making a big deal out of nothing because he wanted to see a flower. Even though he wanted to do this, he knows he needs to find Queen Reina first. On the way, he hears two men talking about something secret, and one of them tells his friend to be quiet so they don't get caught. Then he goes to another room where the Duke is telling Rose's mother that she is the love of his life and that he will kill Rose as soon as he's done with her and then marry his true love. When Shadow hears this, he decides that he needs to fix things by 6 p.m. He also says that Rose will be angry if she finds out the truth. If that's not enough to make her want to become a tyrant, Margaret goes to see her, get her a drink, and Rose tries to say something before she leaves but fails. And she doesn't say a word even though she thinks this situation is. Really sad, Rose thinks she can still save her mother if she needs to. As she walks along this path, she is surprised to see Shadow and asks him if he's okay. Went there to kill her. But he doesn't say anything, and Rose tells him she's sorry. Having lied to him, Shadow only tells her to follow him because he will. Do your best to show you the truth. After that, she is taken to her mother and the Duke, and she says it was a good idea to keep giving her husband drugs to death soon, and the kingdom will be theirs alone. But she complains about not since they killed Rose first because of her. They have even more work to do. When she hears this, she starts to feel sick, and Shadow tells her that this is the truth, so Rose should believe it, and he tells her to do so. As he speaks, she walks by, rise like a tyrant to free the blade of rebellion. After a while, she wakes up wondering what their goal was and when she fell asleep. Remembers what her mother told her, so she throws up again and begs to go back. Ban's thoughts went back to the times when she was happy and they were sad. Moonlight Sonata is played, and when Rose opens the window, Sid is on the balcony playing the piano, and then she goes up to him and asks him. She wanted to run away with him to a world no one had heard of. She had already killed her father and her mother had betrayed her. Because she had betrayed her group, there was no longer any reason for her to stay. Sid was the only one left for her in that. He says he likes this song because it helps him see things more clearly. And he says that he split the world into two groups. The important things and the other things. She asks him why he did what he did, and Sid tells her that he did it. He did it because he had a dream that wouldn't come true if they didn't split up the world in that way. And then he says that he spent his limited time and he only tried as hard as it was important. He let go of the rest, and Sid said that humans easily get lost and often forget what's important, this is why he thinks the moon's light is perfect for their world. This makes them more aware of their true goals and makes sure they never lose sight of them. He asks her what she sees in this world lit by the moon, and after when you ask this question, Sid just vanishes, leaving a ring behind. He knows that he did everything he could to persuade her when he goes to the bath. Rose, so he just needs to wait for her to rise up and begin the rebellion. Then Epsilon shows up and asks to rub his back. While they're in the shower, he tells him that he already gave Rose the key, and that all he has to do now is be sure she will wake up, because the flag of rebellion will do if she does. This automatically too, and Epsilon knows why he is when he hears this. Couldn't find her anywhere, and Shadow says the battle that will decide everything will happen in 3 days. On the very day she was to marry the Duke, and he says that that day, the sleeping lion will wake up. The next day, on the day of, there is a protest in the kingdom where people want to call off the wedding. They didn't want to go to the wedding because they thought she was a fake princess. The protesters are shot by guards, and the Duke celebrates that day because his plan will be finished, and he says he had a few surprises along the way. There are problems to solve, like Gear's unplanned event, when he gave away ownership of he was to be the next king or queen after Princess Rose, and Lord Mid had told him that. To get the ring, he has to marry Rose and make her a part of his family. blood into the royal language. And he knew that these kinds of artifacts could only he thinks that kind of work is very bad. But in the end, he is ready to do anything to reach his goals. So he plans to become one of the rounds for now. But when he opens the ring box, there's nothing inside. He let Morid call him and say that he will come after the ceremony, will come in 12th in the rounds. And then as C-Hat starts to think about some excuse me, I need to wait to exchange rings. In the meantime, Rose goes to the altar. Shadow then plays the Moonlight Sonata on the organ to mark the event. The priest asks Assad if he will marry Rose, and he says yes. But when will the priest asks Rose to do the same thing? She refuses right away, and when she hears when this asshat gets angry, she says that she killed her father. She betrayed her kingdom and swore allegiance to a dark group. And then she says that she will hand over the person who did all of this, and that person would be an asshat himself, and she says he used her father, the king of Oriana, as an instrument. Besides that, he poisoned the queen and planned to overthrow the government. He doesn't agree with those claims and asks her to show everything she is. He says that he can prove what she says, and she says that she can't. Rose says she shouldn't do what he wants because he has a hostage, that she will always love her true love. She then takes the ring. It was him. She finds it and puts it on her finger. Then a red light comes on from the ring, finally plays a recording of Gurk, where he says he will play he says that when they hear his confession, it will be his last act as king, almost certainly already dead, since he says he can feel his mind. He is falling apart every day, which is why he will soon lose his mind. But Gurk wants to tell them the whole truth first, so he does. He's only going crazy because he's slowly taking drugs. Even though his wife told him to change what he eats, he still feels the same. Symptoms, that's right, Duke Pervasad is to blame for everything. He rules the kingdom of Oriana, is run by the huge organization that backs it, and finally, Gurk says he will let those he chose to lead the future of this kingdom. He asks everyone he trusts the most, in this case his daughter Rose, kingdom, to only trust her as their leader, because he thinks she is the best person for the job. He says goodbye to his daughter and promises to lead the country in the right direction. He tells her he loves her, and then everyone around him yells that Assad is a traitor and tells him to give the crown back to its rightful owner, but he doesn't listen, keeps objecting. But Rose raises her sword and finds him guilty after she is now the real leader of the kingdom. But she couldn't do that at first. Something whole gets his head cut off, and soon after, Reina dies too. After a while, a man shows up and says that having useless allies is worse than while he says this. He asks Rose if she agrees with his point of view. Statement, and she only asks him who he is. He tells her that he is dead. The Knight, the Beyond Men, and the 9th seat of the rounds are praised, and he then thanks them. They thank her for becoming the new queen of the kingdom, and then press a button to open the door because those who have the key and those who use it don't need to be there. Everything Mori needs to be the same person is for the conditions to be just right. So the signal can get where it needs to go. That red signal shows up again, taking everything apart, and Mori says that was the truth behind the legend. She stands in front of the Black Rose, the monster that killed everyone, 100,000 Velge Galton soldiers in one night. And then he makes it clear that he can't leave any witnesses. So he calls the great ruler of the 4th kingdom, Ragnarok, the monster that has already wiped out everything, and Morid laughs at all the chaos and tells the thing to stop crushing things. Everyone except Shadow attacks, but Shadow's blows are blocked by the monster. If you liked that video and want more like it, this is another one on the channel. Follow this link and click like. See you in the next video. Then Alpha hears that Black Rose has been set off, and she believes that the destruction that comes before creation has begun. Alpha can send a ship to Oriana if they want to, but it's not likely that they'll get there in time. Omega tells Oriana not to worry because Shadow is there. And then we see Ragnarok call some monsters to attack Oriana. Miriam is shocked to see that Shadow hurt Ragnarok, and he asks Shadow who he is. Shadow introduces himself, and in the marriage hall, the other members of Shadow Garden do the same. Then everyone split up to fight the monsters, and Shadow told Rose that she should also get going because she had things she needed to do. Rose left after hearing this, and Shadow went to fight Ragnarok and Mrid, who thinks he is exaggerating. And Epsilon went there to face Morid. They told him they were going to kill him, but they needed to make sure of something first. Morid hits Epsilon with an invisible sword, but Epsilon avoids it. This makes Epsilon think that this is why Morid is called the Knight Beyond Men. Morid says that his fencing is something that normal people can't see, and he's impressed that Epsilon was able to avoid it. Epsilon says that all he is doing is using the invisible blade, an old elven artifact that makes a sword that can't be seen. Beta says that the cult of Diablo is just like them when they brag about something they stole. She also says that even Diablo's armor and cape are artifacts. In response, she calls him a coward, which makes Miri angry. Epsilon then says that an elven swordsmith risked his life to make that blade, and they will now take it back. When Morgred gets angry, he attacks them, but Epsilon beats him. She answered his attack with one of her own, and Morgred wonders if she is also using an artifact. Beta says that the wisdom they were given is stronger than any artifact, and they say that again. Mrid is also going to teach them what he knows. Mrid tells them they'll feel bad about what they did and gets ready to attack them later. Once Rose has killed the last monster in the castle, she sees that there are still a lot of them in town. Shadow Garden is taking care of them, so she lets them handle this. After that, Margaret finds Rose and tries to say sorry, but Rose cuts her off before she can finish. She tells Margaret to take everyone to the safe cellar they have under the castle gardens. She says she will call together the knights and save the people who are in trouble. Margaret says she will do what she says, and she calls Rose queen. Then we see Shadow and Ragnarok fighting, and Ragnarok casts his magic all over the place to attack Shadow. Shadow is able to avoid all of its attacks, though. It seems to him that Ragnarok has some crazy magic power. He uses his threads to catch the monster and tells it that he rules the skies. Rose then talks to the Shadow Garden members and asks her after they leave the Knights if they believe those guys with the monsters. Rose tells them they can if they can show them their worth, which they can do by dying. Then she tells them to focus on the evacuation, and the Knights leave Rose. After seeing Shadow fight Ragnarok, she asks Mori where Mori is. Mori falls next to her from the sky, and Beta and Epsilon follow him. Beta tells Mori that it was stupid of him to rely on his toys to fight them. Mori can't believe he lost to two little girls. Mid says that this isn't over yet because he has Ragnarok with him and can kill them in an instant. Beta tells him that the instant he's talking about is still a long way off, and Epsilon asks him to confirm some things for them while they wait. Morad asks him right away what they want to know, and Beta tells him what they want to know. He tells the Black Rose, the magical beasts, and the cult Mid that he will never tell them. That, and Beta says that this shouldn't be a problem because he thinks Ragnarok will kill them. Anyway, Morad agrees to tell them what they want to know because he knows they are going to die soon. He tells them that this is not their world. There are many other worlds out there. The girls ask if he's talking about space and other planets. Morad tells them that he's talking about different dimensions, which they call realms. He says there are different kinds of realms, like a realm of poison, a realm of fire, and a realm of ice. Each of these realms goes around a single point, and their world goes around it too. They have no idea what's in the middle point, but because the worlds are spinning around it, sometimes they collide, which links the different worlds together. He says he will give you an example of what happens when the worlds collide. He also says that they studied the ancient layers of their planet and learned that way back when. This world didn't have magic. When their world crashed into another realm, magic flowed into it from that realm. The biosphere changed because of this, and the dragons could no longer live. Only the humanoid races made it through this disaster alive, but this theory still has some. It's possible that the hum came to this world from another realm, just like magic and its creatures. People are the only species with this much intelligence that has been able to thrive. And he says that there are still unanswered questions about them. This could be because they came from another world. Many things have come into this world from other realms over the years, but some have also gone back to those other realms. He says that there was once a country on an island called Atlantis that was never found. It probably went to another realm, and this one and the other realms are affecting each other. The girls also wonder if Diablo came from another realm. Mori says that Diablos was made in their world, but the creature that was the inspiration for the demon Diablos came from another realm. Diablos taught them many things, which is why they call that world the first realm. He says that by now they should have understood. What that sky-high rose really is, Beta says that it's a fake gate to another world. And Mizgrid says that Oriana accidentally opened it one time, which is how they killed the Voltan soldiers. It wasn't easy for the kingdom to get out, though. Magical creatures kept pouring out of the gate, killing any humans that got in their way. Oriana was saved by the cult. It seemed right for Oriana to repay them by locking the gate. The cult wanted Rose because her royal blood was very high in magic. She should have been given to the cult when she was a baby, but her father refused. This is what caused everything. Mirai says that after they destroy Oriana, they will try to build a better kingdom, but Rose says she won't. Allow him to do that. Mid says that what she thinks doesn't matter because Ragnarok is going to destroy her soon, and then parts of Ragnarok fall on her. After that, Shadow uses his threads to cut Ragnarok into tiny pieces. Mordor can't believe what he's seeing. He thinks this is impossible because Ragnarok is the most valuable thing in all dimensions. 559 tells Beta and Epsilon that all the monsters in the capital have been killed. Gamzee gives her more instructions, and Megrid tells him that Ragnarok can't be defeated, which makes him think he's dreaming. He moves toward Ragnarok's fallen arm and then joins with it in some way. He goes to fight Shadow and tries to attack him, but Shadow's attack hits him back. Don't land on Shadow or have any effect on them. Shadow says that Morgred is even less smart than beasts, because beasts can tell when they've been matched up. Then he punches Grime up into the sky. Grime tries to shoot Shadow with some beams, but Shadow avoids them, all of them. Shadow then punches Moray into space and says that the gods sent lightning from the sky a long time ago to punish Earth. Many people were interested in this power and wanted it for themselves. It took humans years of work, but they finally got this power, which came in the form of nuclear bombs. Shadow says that seeing space has reminded him of his goal and what he needs to beat. He then extends his hand over the whole Earth. The light from his attack can be seen by everyone on Earth because it is powered by his mana. Everyone in Shadow Garden knows that this must be their lord's power, and as soon as the light goes out, Shadow begins to fall on Oriana. Then we see that something like a black hole has appeared over Oriana and is squeezing everything inside. Shadow is also sucked into the hole, and we are then taken to AOS Tokyo after the end of the world. We see Akane Nishino, the girl we saw in the first episode of Season 1. She is on her way to save her friends and trying to get somewhere. She thinks of a boy she hated who was just like everyone else. Looking at the moon now makes her remember that day and that boy. Akane then learns that her friends have died, and she says that she already knew this because no one they take away lives even a day. After that, she tries to go back, but the two men who took her hostage attack her along the way. This time, they are cyborgs. They take her away again after knocking her out. She wakes up in the same warehouse where she was locked up before. One of the men tells her that Kane shouldn't go out by herself, even if she is the great savior, because she might meet some bad people. He says that their client wants her to stay alive, and that she seems to have lost a lot of friends. The second man then tries to kill Anine, but the first man tells him not to. Both of them have lost their memories, because someone messed with their brains, and the big man starts to think of the stylish bandit slayer. And A tries to kill him, but Shadow breaks through the warehouse roof and easily kills the big man inside. It's the other man who asks Shadow who he is. Shadow tells him and pulls out the other man as well. Thanks for watching the whole show. Please share and like the video. To keep getting new, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Updates on the anime recap.